Um, Tell me who you are and a little bit about your experience as an educator.
Yeah, so my name's Barb Flowers, and I have been in education for the last almost 15 years. I've been in public schools. I was an elementary teacher. I taught first and third grade, so elementary teaching for 6 years. And then I was an elementary administrator for 8, assistant principal for 2, and the building principal for 6 years. And after I left education, I went into life coaching. And so I've also been doing life coaching on time management and helping just people work on their thoughts, their mindset, having more of a growth mindset, and seeing really what's possible for people to achieve in their lives. So, yeah, a lot of experience in education, life coaching, and now I'm very excited to be part of the Eastwood Global team and bringing that education experience globally and into the US.
That's incredible. So tell me, what is your role at Eastwood Global? And then how does your background as a teacher and a life coach and a principal, how does that mesh with everything that we're doing?
Yeah, so my role at Eastwood Global is I'm the US elementary principal. So I am in charge of helping to recruit students, recruit amazing teachers, and really bring good curriculum to Eastwood Global. So I'm helping to develop the curriculum. I have a master's in curriculum and instruction, lots of experience with creating my own curriculums. And so I'm really excited to create a curriculum that is aligned with IB principles, and it is also aligned to the science of reading. So that's a huge need I see here in the US. A lot of people talk about we have many students who are not reading on grade level. They're struggling to read. I see a lot of homeschooling parents who are homeschooling and they're struggling to help their students with reading. And so I really just want to create an environment where not only are students learning to have a growth mindset and learn from inquiry-based learning, but also get that explicit reading instruction that they need to help them be successful in the real world and make sure that they're reading at an appropriate level by the time that they're leaving us in elementary.
Amazing, amazing. So with the need of comprehensive reading levels in the US, you've identified a need, and then we see everything that Eastwood is doing. I forgot my question. Okay. So identifying the need of the United States and then Eastwood's approach. How does Eastwood go beyond the traditional school system?
Yeah, what's really exciting about Eastwood is everything that we're doing is innovative, right? It's all about it being inquiry based, giving students a question and having them explore and create their own knowledge. This is the ideal situation for kids. We know there's a lot of research out there that kids learn when they're able to construct their own knowledge, when they're able to get a question, explore and research on their own. It helps build their interest. It helps engage them in the learning process and really makes it student centered. And that's our goal at Eastwood Global, is to make everything so that it's student centered and kids take ownership of their learning. It's not that we're having them do things and there's assignments that they have to do, but they're engaged in their learning. They're excited about it. And they're working on projects that are cross curricular, that have math in them, reading, social studies, science, and really bring in that global piece as well. That's what I'm really excited is that, kids are going to learn so much about other kids across the world. They're going to have kids across the United States in their classroom, possibly even across the world. And it's just going to look completely different than what we've seen with traditional education. So I'm excited to be part of this.
That's amazing. It's spanning across different time zones, different cultures, different backgrounds. I think that it's going to add such a layer of knowledge to kids that wouldn't regularly get it.
Yeah.
Um, so with that, how do you plan on, how do I word this? How do you plan on approaching like the different time zones, the different backgrounds, the different student needs, just with all of your experience as a coach, as a facilitator?
Yeah, so one thing I'm really excited about is we are going to have a low student ratio to teachers. So we're excited about that. So students are really going to get a lot of instruction and individualized instruction from those teachers online. So it's not like each teacher is going to have 100 students or 50 students. It's going to be less than 20 students. So it's really exciting that they're going to have that small, intimate environment with that teacher. The other thing that I think is really exciting about it is, yeah, it's not going to look like a traditional school day. So there's going to be, if we're doing the homeschool plus, students get access to a teacher 1 hour a day, but for the online curriculum, it's 3 hours a day. So that can be broken up, and students will also have, like I said, it won't be like necessarily in the morning. It's going to be based on where those students are based in the US, where we can find a commonality in time. But it's going to be really neat because students can learn about each other's cultures, because we know I'm on the East Coast here in the US. It's a very different even from you on the West Coast. So
Mhm.
just having them learn all about each other's cultures, the different time zones, climates, all of that sort of thing is going to give them a unique experience.
Amazing. I really wish that I had this as a student, but I was just in Texas. So I was only
Yeah.
with the kids in Texas, and it was really great. It was a similar structure, but I one thing that I wish that I had more of as a student was um structure and sitting down with my teachers and having a little bit more time. So this just sounds incredible. I wish I could go back to high school and redo it with Eastwood.
Yeah, and I think about my own kids. So I am a mom to a 7 and a 9-year-old as well. And they, learning about outside of their own community, right? We in public education, we talk about that where we build on to where they are in their community. We start with family, then we move to the city, then state, then country. And I was thinking about how that relates to Eastwood Global. And we're basically taking all of that and just going right into global education, which how amazing is that we're teaching kids right away about the world and where people are located in the world, in comparison to where they are. So I think that's really exciting for kids to kind of get that bigger picture right away.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that the most growth comes through exploration, through curiosity, through fostering empowerment to explore different things. How do you plan on doing that? Fostering confidence, autonomy in your students?
Yeah, a lot of it comes from that inquiry-based learning, project-based learning, where they're given a scenario, a question to think about. It requires students to do a lot of thinking on their own, a lot of constructing their own knowledge, whether it's through research, through questioning, debating, giving them two ideas that they have to choose which one is right. So it's really letting them explore and come up with their own knowledge. So I think that that is an exciting thing for kids, and also finding things that are based on their interests. So instead of you have to study this right now, it's like, what are the things that are interesting to them? And then helping build that background knowledge. Because the other thing we know with kids is the more we build their background knowledge and give them more experiences, they're going to be better readers. They're going to know more content. And so that's one of the things that we want to provide for them, is just giving them as much experience as possible, enough content that they are learning and growing, and pushing themselves on their own limits, and even having that growth mindset where, they're setting goals and they're deciding where they want to be in their learning and taking ownership of that as well.
So amazing answer. When you have worked with a student that struggles with growth mindset, what are some things that you kind of help them do to reframe that mindset?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think sometimes what happens when I see kids struggling with growth mindset, one of two, they feel defeated because they've struggled in elementary school already. I mean, I've seen kindergartners feel that right away, where they already feel like they're behind coming in. And so I think one of the ways that we're going to be different is, yes, we know that kids might have deficits and areas they need to improve, but really focusing on the strengths of students. And that's where I think the IB education, that inquiry based, is huge, because even if a student is struggling, let's say in learning to read, when you give them an open ended concept and let them explore and let them really use their creative thinking and a lot of discussion techniques, they're going to feel more successful. And the more that they learn that there's not just one right answer, it helps students not be so afraid to be right or wrong. It's not so black or white. And so I think giving students that opportunity to feel success is huge. The other thing I see a lot, is with students who could be identified gifted or always like achieving above the curriculum. they kind of shut down because they're used to things being so easy for them that they don't always push themselves. And so again, it's giving them that exploratory curriculum where they can kind of open up and differentiate it to their ability by taking things above level on it's really easy for them to do because they're taking it to their interests, what they want to do. They're pushing themselves. They've got their own goals. And so having that where they're not feeling bored in class or feeling like it's hard to be pushed out of their limit, I think it's going to help those kids who struggle to stay engaged and struggle with that growth mindset.
That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. And I think you're 100% right in giving the space for kids to figure out their own and arrive at their own capacity and what they want
Mhm.
to learn and their interests. I think that everybody's more productive when they're doing things that they really enjoy, that stimulate them.
Yeah, and I think sometimes what happens is we have students and we have their zone of proximal development, like where are they developmentally, and then pushing them past that. And that's what that inquiry-based learning does, is it can take any kid where they're at and push them above that. And so often what I see is we're giving kids curriculum that's either too easy and it's not engaging them, or it's too hard and so they're frustrated and they can't meet that expectation because they don't have the foundational skills to get there.
Amazing. So, how does your experience as a former principal inform the way that you kind of help families navigate their educational journey?
Yeah, so I have a lot of experience. I was a principal in a K-5 building. And so it was such a great experience too, because I got to see the kids from kindergarten to fifth grade, to see that growth happen and watch them develop, which I didn't get that opportunity as a teacher because I only had them for 1 year. And so I think just having that experience with building those relationships with families over a 6 year period, watching the development of their child and always being able to support them and knowing what would be best for their child, getting to know kids, knowing what type of teacher is best for them, I think has really helped me understand the full development of kids, how kids differ, the learning differences, kids that are gifted, kids that are struggling and might have learning difficulties, how we support those kids. I've learned a lot about like what do those learning difficulties typically look like? What are usually the problems when it comes to reading? Like I said, a lot of it goes back to the research we're learning about the science of reading and making sure kids have appropriate instruction that's related to phonics and phonemic awareness. Um, and also just making sure that, understanding how kids learn and develop when it comes to keeping them engaged in school. And like I said, I've seen that so often where it can start as early as kindergarten, where they're no longer engaged in school if they're not feeling success right away. So our goal is really to create an environment where they do feel those successes, they have wins, they know what their strengths are, so that they can just keep learning and growing. I mean, if we think about it as an adult, we don't want to do the things that we know we're not good at, right? Nobody does. And so and often as kids, for kids, we don't think about that as well, of what they're comfortable with and how we can engage them in their learning more to feel success versus always focusing on their deficits and what they're doing wrong.
Wow. I was watching on I can't remember which podcast it was, but it was Dr. Corey, and he was talking about one of the pillars that they lead with at Eastwood is love, doing everything with love, loving everything around you and your education, the things that light you up, and really exploring the world through that lens. I think
Mhm.
that it's such a wonderful alignment to growing minds and curious minds and fun minds.
Yeah, and the other thing I think that's really interesting about Eastwood Global, and we talk about the entrepreneur spirit, right? Is having that. And I think what goes along with that is interesting that I've learned in my life coaching is that so many of us adults and children included have limited beliefs about our capabilities, about what we're able to accomplish in life. And I think about how that relates to creating this elementary education where we can teach kids early on that they have the capacity to do whatever they want to do, that, whatever they believe that they want to do and want to accomplish, they're able to do it. And it's teaching them that mindset, that growth mindset. And I think often. I know I wasn't taught that in elementary school, and I grew up with these very limited beliefs of what life looks like because it was so traditional. And I think giving them this global perspective, it's like we have no idea what these students' lives will look like 10 years from now, what the world will look like 10 years from now. But if we can just give them that mindset where they're open to learning, growing, and knowing that nothing's off limits for them, I think that is a huge advantage we're giving kids.
That's absolutely incredible. And I think you're correct. I think you're absolutely right. I can agree with you that I too was not given the space to explore, to kind of follow my passions because, you have a very rigid school system. You have math and then you have English and then you have science and we are only learning these things. And I felt frustrated by math until I got to middle school where a math teacher of mine, she said, "You're not bad at math. You don't like the way that things are done." And I'm like, "Tell me more about this. This is scattergun. I'm not understanding." And so she's like, "Break it down, go home, don't do the homework tonight. Break it down in a way that makes sense for you, and then come show me what you did." So I did that. And she's like, "Oh, this is the kind of learner you are. This is why this traditional following the formulas and doing what all the other kids that were, really operating at a 12th grade level, in sixth grade, these are the ones that are following this structure. It's not going to work for you because this is where you're at. You're more creative. You are more, is it right brain or left brain creative?"
You know what? I don't know. That's a good question.
Well, I lean more on the creative side, not the logical, analytical. Well, logical, yes, analytical, no, but more creative. And so I'm like, oh, and so she kind of taught me how to reframe how I approached math. And then I was a straight A student. So I'm like, thank you
Yeah.
for having the patience with me on this.
Yeah, and I think that brings up a really good point of helping kids know themselves. And again, in a traditional environment, it's really hard to do that. Having been a teacher myself, you have so much that you have to squeeze into that day that like you have no extra time for those types of conversations. But I think helping kids when they're, in these inquiry-based situations, it's open-ended, that gives them opportunities to reflect and get to know themselves better. Like you said, as a learner, what are their strengths? What are they good at? And what's going to help them be successful? Because if we focus on this is how you have to learn this one way, and you're not successful in that, then that's when it brings, low self-esteem to kids and they don't feel successful. And then they shut down, they're not engaged in their learning. And that can be really detrimental to them in their future.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So I guess it's the last question. What would you say to parents that are looking for an educational environment that can help foster their child's full potential?
Yeah, I would say Eastwood Global is definitely the place to be. Like I said, we have amazing curriculum experts, and we are developing our curriculum that is not only aligned to needs with the science of reading, but it is aligned to inquiry-based learning. It's aligned to this cross-curricular learning where students are really going to be able to take what they're learning in school and apply it to the real world. It's not these separate subject areas and content areas that they're not going to know how it fits into real world context. So not only that, but the life skills that they're learning, the growth mindset, what type of learner they are, checking those limited beliefs and really expanding on them. So I think that there's so much more that kids get than a traditional education here at Eastwood Global. That I just wish that, like I said, I had this opportunity as a kid and just the ability to learn more about the world and see the world in a different lens starting at such an early age. I just think about what advantage these kids are going to have as they go on to middle school and even high school.
Amazing, amazing. And now, just asking you, for you, you have two kids, 7 and 9, right?
Yeah.
What are some things, almost like exercises or practices that you have them do to work on their mindset, their growth mindset, and fostering curiosity?
Yeah. So it's so funny. One thing I do with my kids a lot is affirmations. Like if they're feeling down or doubting themselves, we'll do a positive affirmation. And my daughter made a little cozy corner and it said, I am brave, I am kind, I am smart, and it's like that stuff carries over. So the more you can talk to your kids about positive affirmations, my son is really into sports. And so we talk a lot about like visualizing his success in sports, And knowing that he has the capability to do whatever he wants with that hard work. If he wants to be a good basketball player, like let's research and look at good basketball players. Michael Jordan, LeBron James, what did they do? They practiced and practiced. And so having those people that he researches, he's into football. So he looks up Tom Brady all the time, right? And it really, even at home, is that inquiry-based learning where they're curious about somebody, curious about a topic, they learn more about it. And then I use that in everyday explanations. If you want to get better, what are the things we have to do? What type of mindset do you think Tom Brady has to be able to be where he's at? And I try to relate it to things that they're interested in, because that really does help them see how it fits into their day-to-day life.
Amazing answer. I love that. So how will the Eastwood Global structure be beneficial for parents?
Yeah, what I'm really excited about with parents is I really look at it like a triangle. So we have the triangle that is the student, the teacher, and the parents all working together. And this is really going to create the most supportive environment for the student. And what we're doing here at Eastwood Global with the elementary is we are making sure that parents are educated, because when we're talking about helping students learn to read, it's not just the teacher, it's not just in that time of day. We need students practicing. And as a parent, I know it can be really hard because parents don't remember the phonics rules, or maybe they weren't taught phonics when they were learning to read. And so we want to make sure that kids are taught the correct way. So we're giving so many resources to help parents make sure that they know the exact way to support their student at home when they're not, working with the teacher and they're trying to read with them as well, because we need that consistency within the people working with the student. So I'm really excited for having those resources available to parents. And I think that's something that's going to differentiate Eastwood Global from other schools, is parents aren't always educated. In public schools, I always told parents, let us do it at school, because, parents didn't know how to support them at home. And so it was just easier to be able to do that. But now with the homeschooling option and it being online, I think having that partnership where parents can really learn how to support their child is going to be important for the success of their child.
I think that's an absolute game changer, a huge game changer. I know some of my funny memories doing math or science or anything. I'm like, hey, Dad, can you help me with this? And he's like, yeah, I'll help you. Trying to, be a good dad and support me. And then, he showed up, but, we're sitting there staring at the question and the problem together. Like, I have no idea how to solve this.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I'm
So I
trying to
think having,
explain, PEMDAS to my dad. And he's like, I don't know what PEMDAS is.
right. Well, and even, as we get into third, fourth, and fifth grade, I always laugh because parents would be like, I don't know how to help my child with that kind of content, because it is with the Common Core standards, it's a lot harder than it used to be. It's more complex. It is those real world scenarios. And so giving parents the support that they need to help their child and support them, I think, is huge. And I'm in a lot of groups and talk to a lot of homeschool parents that are always looking for, how do I help my child at home? How do I help them if they're not reading at grade level? And so this is where we can help, is we give parents resources along with teaching their child.
Amazing. Amazing. That was an incredible question, Barb.